show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's June 7th, 2021. I'm Gary Ferman, Matt Shodell, and we are going to bring you up to date on all the goings on at CaneSport.com and give you some insight into what you're seeing on the website today. Well, Matt, big weekend at the U, 7 official visitors. They had an offense, defensive line camp that I was fortunate to attend on Sunday morning. 7-on-7 tournament going on the practice fields and inside the indoor practice facility. Got to see some of the local teams show off their skill players a little bit. Wasn't big on like superstar elite level talent this year, like we've seen maybe in some years of the past. A couple decent prospects in the O-line, D-line camp, but not a ton of depth there either. So it was a relatively mellow day in those terms for what typically is a big camp. But the major action this weekend, without question, was the 7 official visitors. I assume you would agree with that.
Yeah, maybe that's why the camp wasn't quite so star-studded. I mean, you know, Miami coaches normally would push and push and push to get top kids to come to the camp, but they pushed and pushed and pushed to get kids to the cookout June 1st and June 2nd, not to the camp. They pushed and pushed and pushed to get, I don't know, I didn't add up the total amounts, but probably around 25 to 30 official visitors in the month of June, not to get kids to the camp. They're going to push and push and push to get the kids to Paradise Camp. But, you know, this individual camps, the 7-on-7 camps this year, they're a little bit of a back burner, whereas they used to have a huge, it used to be a huge factor in Miami recruiting. But the times have changed with COVID, and Miami's adapted to that, and you could see that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. A lot of emphasis went into the barbecues or cookouts last week. No doubt about it. Great turnout. Lots of elite prospects showed up for those. And I think we're going to see the same later this month with Paradise. And once that gets going later in June. So in between, some good official visit weekends. I think next week is even better than this week. And they're building. And I think by the end of the month, we might start seeing a few commitments start to pile up here. And the 2022 recruiting class will be full speed ahead, so to speak. So just let's take a minute. The official visitors that ended their visits on Sunday, they were there Friday to Sunday. We spoke to all 7 of them. And
not all 7, we talked to 6, but we got
6
feedback
of the
on
7,
that.
Right? That's right, Malik. And the funny thing is the offensive tackle, Malik Agbo, who has been kind of elusive for us since he ended his visit, might have had the best visit of anybody. I mean, everybody you talk to will tell you that this kid had a phenomenal visit. Miami is very much in his picture, but for whatever reason, he has decided to be low-key so far and has not talked about it himself. So we had to go on the accounts of others. All, I think you would agree, Matt, were very, very positive.
Yeah, I mean, there was nothing that any of the kids said negative at all. They loved it. I mean, these kids all loved the visit, but, you know, who doesn't love Miami? And it's the first visits they get to take, and they were certainly wowed. The big question now, it's not, look, I mean, I expected them to have a great time on the visit, but the big question now is, as they take other visits moving forward, which we reported yesterday, who's visiting where next, and, the rest of the month, like that's the key, right? The end of the June, after these kids wrap up all the visits in the June, I think it's June 27th or 28th is when the dead period starts again. At that point, when we check back in with everyone, and we'll be doing it periodically for the important kids anyway, but when we get back with a lot of these kids, where does Miami stand now on July 1st, for instance? Do they still remember the Miami visit as well as they remember the last 3 or 4 visits they just took? So that's the key. It's great. They all had great visits. I would have liked to see like maybe Chris Graves commit, but some of these kids, like they flat out told me, like I asked them, was Miami pushing for your commitment? Because there was a couple of kids, Omar Graham and Chris Graves. Well, Omar, I'm not sure that he's necessarily going to be a definite take, but they're on official visits. If Miami wants those 2 kids, you think they'd be like, we'd love for you to join us and shut this thing down and get the ball rolling, whatever. They said no. Miami just said, come have a good time. They even, I mean, literally they said to me that Miami coaches told them, go take other visits, have a vacation, enjoy yourselves. It's June, and I think Miami doesn't want these kids committing too early and then regretting it or wanting to take other visits in the fall, and now Miami is behind the 8 ball. They want to know when a kid commits, like, it's done. Like, you're not taking any more visits. You are locked in with Miami. They want this commitment to be like you're signing.
Yeah.
So
I think it's a good strategy because it's early in June. These kids have been cooped up.
Right.
They all have visits lined up. I just mentioned Agbo. He's got June visits set up to LSU and Oklahoma, which are great schools. I mean, let's be honest. So
yeah. I mean,
it makes no sense.
Yeah.
Makes no sense for it to kind of pressure him into a commitment now and then go take those visits and be looking at possible decommitments down the road. You got to have patience. Let the kids take their visits and then try to close on them as the month goes on. I like the strategy. All right. So you mentioned Omar Graham. He's the 3-star linebacker from Fort Lauderdale Stranahan. The most interesting thing that I thought he told us this weekend was that it really was the first time that he had ventured outside of Fort Lauderdale. Like he was in awe of South Beach, had never been there before, had never really spent any significant time in Miami. And, the experience of being able to do that for him was not so distinctly different than, say, going to Florida or Oklahoma or Georgia, or like it was almost like an out-of-town visit for him. He had a great time. As you noted on him, we're not sure that his offer is committable yet. And, we'll have to see how Miami's linebacker recruiting progresses in the month ahead. But he had a great time, and certainly the Hurricanes are on his radar. Also has plans to visit Florida State, Penn State, and Auburn. And, of course, the complete stories on all these kids are on CaneSport.com. We're giving you, a couple little nuggets here. But urge you, make sure you go to the website and check all this stuff out in detail in our stories on these kids. All right. So this weekend, I thought the most significant visits of the weekend were the 2 cornerbacks. I like Agbo. He's a 4-star from all the way in Washington. So to me, that's going to make him a tough get at the end of the day. It's far. Like, he had a great time. We'll see how things go with him. It's far. These 2 cornerbacks are a little bit different. And I think both of their offers are committable. And Miami would love to get both of these guys. And that's Chris Graves, the 3-star from Fort Myers Bishop Verot. Many think that Miami has the inside track to land Graves. But I was kind of surprised, man. I thought he might commit this weekend. I rushed to go make a forecast in our forecast module on our site, and I forecast him to Miami. I thought he might commit this weekend on the visit. That didn't happen, and he indicated that he is very serious about taking his other visits, and he's got South Carolina, LSU, Alabama, Florida, Oklahoma, and maybe Florida State still on his schedule. So did I jump the gun in forecasting him to Miami? Your thoughts?
Well, by the way, there's 3 cornerbacks that visited this weekend also with Fagan.
No, I know, but I think the two I'm talking about in Graves, and I'm also going to talk about Traquan Fagans. To me, those 2 are the ones that they are most intense about.
Right. Well, I don't know that Alabama really wants Graves, but there's a story this morning on our website, Nigel Lee Kelly, right? He just got back from Alabama, and it's not easy to to beat some of these teams. So actually, it wasn't Nigel Lee Kelly. There was another recruit I talked to who visited Alabama.
Kelly, I think, was at FSU.
Kelly was at FSU. Yeah. There was another kid who just visited Alabama, and I was just talking to him, and he basically said, the Alabama visit was so amazing that, this was Kenyatta Jackson. Okay, I was just talking to him in passing, but he said the Alabama visit was so amazing that, he doesn't know where Miami fits in anymore. So these are the kinds of things you're battling when a program like Alabama gets their hooks into you. So we'll see if Alabama really wants Graves and things like that. And I'm going to get a hold of Kenyatta Jackson. We'll get a more in-depth interview and put something on the website.
And Jackson did not show up at the cookouts this week.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to get more time with him. We'll run something. We will have a story with him at some point this week for sure. But
I thought that was very telling that he was not there. And we've never really expected him to be part of this class. Everything we've heard from day one on him was suggesting that he was looking at out-of-town schools and was going to be a very tough get for Miami. So that was not such a big surprise. But, like I said, I really thought Graves might commit this weekend, and he didn't. And, understandable. He's got some great visits ahead. I think Miami does remain in the driver's seat there, but obviously that can change here in the coming weeks with the level of visits that kid is taking. All right. So the other cornerback I mentioned that I think is a huge priority for Miami, as well as Graves, is Traquan Fagans. And he said after the visit that Miami moved up on his radar, and I think that what's going to happen here is Miami is going to try really hard in June to get these two kids, and then if they're successful, they can put the full court press for what I expect to be a third cornerback commit on Earl Little. And that's going to be a long shot, no doubt about it. But if they could get Graves, Fagans, and Little, you're going to see DeMarcus Van Dyke and Travaris Robinson dancing all over Santa Mara Drive outside the Heck Center, because, or I guess they call it number 1 Hurricane Drive now. But yeah, because that would be like the perfect storm for the Hurricanes.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that troubled me with that is that his brother, 2025 Anquan Fagans, didn't come on the visit. And, he's got a Miami offer. They want to play together at the same college. It just doesn't make sense to me. If the kid's going to wind up at Miami, why don't you, bring your little brother along with you? But, I guess we'll see what happens.
All right. And then another recruit that was in this weekend that I think is going to be a tough get, but who I know is a big priority, that's Anthony Jones, the 3-star tight end from Vegas. I know Brevin Jordan's probably been in his ear quite a bit, but he still has a Texas visit, and Oregon is also very hot after him. Both those schools are closer to home than Miami, so we'll see what happens. But Jones said he had a really good visit. The third cornerback that you mentioned that visited this weekend was Jordan Allen from Lafayette, Louisiana, another one that loved his visit. He goes to Louisville, Penn State, and Tennessee next. And then the final visitor of the weekend was defensive tackle Quintel Jones from Georgia. He's going to Wisconsin and Tennessee still. He also had a great visit. So the first visit weekend, in summary, Matt, I think would have to be called a success. Everybody that came seemed to have a great time. And I think that as much as anything, it was an opportunity for the coaches and the staff. You've got some new faces in play here. And it was an opportunity for them to kind of fine-tune their execution of official visits. And there'll be more this month, but it seemed, in summary, to go pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I think that was missing, and it's a shame, I just don't understand. I can't wrap my head around it, but like you mentioned Jordan Allen, he's from Louisiana. He really wanted to meet Ed Reed, and Ed Reed just wasn't there this weekend, and I don't know what Ed's schedule is like and how their arrangements are, but these official visit weekends are pretty important for Miami. This is them putting together their future, and these kids know Ed Reed, and I think a lot of them look up to him as a legend, as a guy who's done it all and has a lot of knowledge, even if they're not playing safety. So, I don't know if Manny can somehow get Ed on campus certainly for Paradise Camp, but hopefully for some other official visit weekends. Because a guy like Ed Reed saying, listen, we're getting the Miami program right. We need you here to help make it right. I was a champion. You could be a champion, that sort of thing. That carries a lot more weight than this staff that hasn't done anything yet, So I think that was the only thing that was missing. But other than that, I think it went great.
Yeah. I'm not sure where that relationship, in terms of his role as the chief of staff right now stands. It does, I think COVID kind of, threw a monkey wrench into that. And, we'll have to see how that goes as the year goes forward, and maybe do a little more inquiring as to whether that role is going to continue, not continue. But, I mean, I think you're 100% spot on that because of the expectations of seeing him for those kids that know about him, and then he's not there, that it becomes a notable thing. And so, if he's not going to be actively involved in the program, it might be best to just say so. And then, kids don't come with those expectations. But, we'll see. We'll see what's going on there. We'll try to see if we can find out before we comment too much on that. But yes, he is not the first kid that has said to us, I was looking forward to seeing Ed Reed, and Ed Reed wasn't there. So we'll have to do some more probing on that. All right, other things on the website today. Obviously, the baseball team, very, very disappointing into their season in Gainesville. Jim Martz has got some really good coverage on that. And then in terms of this week, we'll be looking at a lot more recruiting stories, couple community camps and things like that going on this week. So, it's not going to be as active as this past week was, which was like unbelievable and a lot going on. But, there will be enough happening that'll, keep us and you guys busy reading the stories and things like that. And, of course, we'll be all over it the best we can at CaneSport.com. So that's going to do it for Good Morning CaneSport for today. Hope you enjoy all the coverage on the website. So until next time, he's Matt Shodell. I'm Gary Ferman, and we'll see you soon, everybody.